Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Hello, welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We are part of the mighty GSMC podcast network, and my name is Howard Fletcher. I'm the host. I want to thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate you listening. We've been doing well these weeks, and I just want to keep growing this show. Got a big show for you today. If you tuned in last week, you know that I'll be giving you a recap and a review of the first episode of one of my favorite shows, Westworld. Westworld Season 3 premiered on Sunday night. That would have been March 15th. And I can't wait to get to that. But first, and I'm going to warn you, we've talked about this in past shows, and it's just not going away, and it doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. So it might be a running theme for the weeks to come, and that's the effects of COVID-19, better known to you and me as coronavirus. The television business and all businesses really have really been impacted by this thing, mostly because we are being encouraged not to commingle. They want to keep us distance until we know how much disease or how much infection is out there. The medical community thinks it's best that we keep socially distanced, and I would concur. So a lot of things are shut down. I'm going to talk about that, and that's pretty much the show today. The first thing I want to get into is another media event that was canceled. You know, I've talked about South by Southwest and MIP TV and probably the canceling of the Cannes Film Festival, which I anticipate any day now. Another media event was canceled, one called Upfront. Now, CBS Viacom or Viacom CBS, Warner Media, the CW, and NBC Universal, they said they were going to cancel their Upfront sales event that they hold every year. And in this event, they hold it to convince advertisers to commit what turns out to be billions of dollars to its programming. This is a big event for what we used to call broadcast TV, which is commercial TV on what is basic cable for the most part. This is where they try to get people to sponsor their shows. How they make their money. Make a long story short, they had to cancel this thing. 3 of the companies said they would stream presentations, which has been the alternative that a lot of these events have been going to. The company that hasn't said what they're going to do yet is the CW, home of The Flash and Arrow. Those are shows that I watch. I should do a show on the Arrowverse later. Oh, by the way, if you watch any of those shows on the CW, Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, I'll add Supergirl to it too. Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and let me know what you think of the shows and if you would like me to do a show about them. Now, I don't watch Supergirl and I don't watch Legends of Tomorrow. I've watched the first couple of seasons and then it got ridiculous. And for those people who don't watch any of these shows, they probably say, well, they all sound ridiculous to me, Howard, but I like The Flash and I did like Arrow. Now, these TV industry upfront presentations, they're kind of a milestone during the year. And it's at mid-May, they have a whole bunch of these big parties. You know what I've learned since I've been focusing on this, doing this podcast? The TV industry, the entertainment industry as a whole, but let's just focus on television, It's all parties. I mean, I used to think that this stuff that you see on these entertainment shows, like E! And all that, that was what they focused on, because, I mean, nobody wants to see a bunch of executives around a boardroom table hashing it out. But other than the writer's room, all this other stuff is done at parties. And so in mid-May, they have parties and client meetings, which to me sound like catered parties, where they kind of schmooze these executives, premiere some of their shows, get some of the stars of the shows to mix with them, and they get backing, they get sponsorship. They used to do it back in the day when they mostly automobile companies and like Procter and Gamble soap companies. That's where you get the name soap opera from. Used to be the ones that they are whining and dining, but now it's across the board. They're just trying to get money for these shows, and it's a big party. Two networks that have decided to pull out of the large upfront event are Fox News Channel and A&E Networks, but they're still going to do a live presentation. They pulled out because of concerns about coronavirus, but Fox News and A&E say they're going to do a private thing rather than do it in a convention form. I would imagine Fox News would prefer to get together with their anchors.
Oh, sir.
A person familiar with the matter says that Viacom-CBS still sees value in the events and hopes to return to a normal upfront in 2021. And I imagine that most of them will probably, after this coronavirus thing dies down, would prefer to make these presentations up front, because there's more value in these people actually meeting the stars of the show rather than watching a video of the stars and a clip of the show. So anyway, and I hope you find this interesting. The only reason I bring these up, I keep saying that, is because, and it's going to affect what I talk about, because the more these shows, the new shows get delayed, the more we're going to start watching reruns and stuff. And I'm going to have to start doing shows about what did you guys think about Game of Thrones, rather than talking about the new things that are on television. Now, The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Hollywood executives are estimating that entertainment as a whole, meaning television, film, and streaming, could take an estimated total hit of $20 billion because of the shutdowns and slowdowns caused and delays of releases caused by coronavirus or COVID-19. Now, I'm going to add a caveat to that number, because studios are notorious liars when it comes to their bottom lines. I was just reading a book by William Goldman, and I was listening to a podcast where a gentleman brought up an anecdote about him. So this is going to be third-hand hearsay, but William Goldman, and he does make mention of this in his book, not this specifically, but this type of thing, his book called Adventures in the Screen Trade, which I highly recommend. For those who don't know, William Goldman was probably the most famous screenwriter who ever lived. He was a novelist, an award-winning screenwriter, and also what they called a screenplay doctor. If somebody had a jacked up screenplay, they'd give it to William Goldman, and he knew how to fix it. Anyway, he told a story about the film Bonnie and Clyde, which he wrote he won an Oscar for the screenplay of Bonnie and Clyde with, Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty. Anyway, he was given points. When you make a deal in Hollywood, they will offer you money, and then they will offer also, you might want to negotiate points on the back end, meaning that if the film makes a profit, you get a percentage of those profits. Well, he said that was always like a gag, because there's never any profits in Hollywood. In other words, he was given points on Bonnie and Clyde, and he said for like 10 years he would get statements from 20th Century Fox that said that the film was still in the red. And then he said one year he got a royalty check for like a couple $1,000, but then the following year it somehow was in the red again. And Bonnie and Clyde never made money, according to the studio. Now, we all know that's impossible, but that's what I'm saying. So when I hear them say that Hollywood may take this financial hit of $20 billion, well, the money's going to slow down, obviously, but I don't know if they're going to take a loss of $20 billion. On the TV side, however, it's hard to put a price tag on that. TV might benefit a bit, because everyone's staying at home. And so they're going to be Netflix and chilling, or Disney Plus and chilling, I guess. Well, there's more family friendly, so that might not sound so good. But, you got a lot of series that have been shut down, a lot of pilots that have been stopped or canceled. So when I come back, I have compiled, with the help of some other sources, a list of series that have been shut down or delayed, and also some pilots that aren't going to air, so that at least today, the status of any series that you watch and what the future might hold for them. The future will be brighter. Trust me, folks. COVID-19 will go away after a while. I want to stay. I'll be right back.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
All right, back. Now, what I'm going to do is I've compiled this list, and literally this list, I just added more stuff to the list just now. It gets longer and longer. So these are the shows as of March 14th that have been affected by COVID-19. And it's probably going to take 2 segments for me to go through this list, but I think you guys are going to find it interesting. And it's in no particular order. No, it actually is. It's in the order in which I got this information. So the newest information is going to be first, and I'm just going to go down the list. Supernatural, the Warner Brothers show that's on the CW. It shuttered its production. This is the final season for Supernatural. I don't know whether they're going to take it up again or not. We'll see. Snowpiercer is a new series. It has Jennifer Connelly in it. It's based on the Bong Joon-ho 2013 movie, which is a great movie. Bong Joon-ho is the director of Parasite, and which just won Best Picture. Anyway, it's going to be on TNT, and that has been shut down. Netflix has halted production on season 4 of Stranger Things. The Ellen Show, Ellen DeGeneres, announced on Twitter that her talk show is suspending production completely until the end of the month, March 30th. Varsity Blues, it's a Quibi Quibi is a new streaming service, a new show service. It's an adaptation of the 1999 film. Varsity Blues is a movie I have never seen. I think it had the young Tom Cruise in it. Wait, no, I think that's All the Right Moves, and Tom Cruise wouldn't have been young in 1999, so I take that back. The Walking Dead. AMC has delayed the production by, they say they're going to delay it 3 to 4 weeks. So things are bad when The Walking Dead is not being produced. Fear the Walking Dead, unlike its originator, it was already in production. However, it's going to take an extended hiatus until this COVID-19 thing can get under control, or they'll have some real zombies on their hands. Kevin Can F Himself. That's a new AMC series. It's in pre-production, but they pushed it back 3 to 4 weeks, according to this source. The Donald Glover series Atlanta, which I think is hilarious, has been put on hold. So I think that's going to be season 3, if I'm not mistaken, but they've put that on hold. Snowfall, another FX series, that season 4, which I also watched that show, has been put on hold because of coronavirus. I didn't know if they were going to come back with a season 4 because John Singleton, the director-creator of the show, passed away, unfortunately, last year, but apparently they are. The 4th season of the series Fargo has stopped production. I believe Chris Rock is going to be part of season 4. Looking forward to that. Fargo is a show that I watch. Excellent show. I'll probably be reviewing that once it starts its run. Euphoria, the HBO second season of the HBO show with Zendaya of Spider-Man fame, who also sings, but not a fan. Well, I haven't really heard her stuff, so I can't say I'm not a fan, but that's how I know Zendaya from Spider-Man movies. That production was about to begin, but then it delayed production, so we don't know when Euphoria is going to be back on the road. The Righteous Gemstones, the second season of the Danny McBride comedy, that has been shut down for now. C, which is the Apple Plus series with Jason Momoa, Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones, and unfortunately he got caught up in the DC universe, the DC MCU, and became Aquaman. He did the best he could, though. I'll give him that. That has been shut down as well. Servant, the M. Night Shyamalan series, very creepy series, was shut down. I saw that first season. I thought it was pretty good. That creepy baby was enough to keep me around. Lizzie's Story, which is produced by Warner Brothers and Bad Robot, which is J.J. Abrams' company. It has Clive Owen and Julianne Moore. They have called that quits for now. I don't even know what. Let me do some research. Hold on. Okay. And my Stephen King people are going to be mad at me about this. This is a Stephen King novel that they are basing a series on. And I don't know if this is Lizzie's Story or Lizzie's Story. Lisey. Another strange name that Stephen King has pulled out of his hat. So that's probably it's probably a great story, but they've called that one quits for now. Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet, which is from the makers of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a new comedy. Apparently it started last month. It's been forced to shut production down because of coronavirus concerns. Foundation, another Apple TV. I keep wanting to say Apple Plus, but it's Disney Plus, Apple TV production. It's based on this book of the same name by Isaac Asimov. Haven't read the book. Science fiction for sure. That should be pretty good because the Apple TV productions I've been impressed with. For All Mankind, season 2 of the series has been stopped. American Crime Story Impeachment. Okay, now this is from the same people that brought you the Trial of O.J. Simpson series drama and the Assassination of Gianni Versace. Both of those series, even though the subject matter was very bad, it was, I hate to be enthralled by cases that people were seriously injured or killed. The acting was over the top on both of those. And this one promises the same. The producers of American Horror Story make American Crime Story, okay? And this one is about the story of the impeachment of Bill Clinton. All right? Sarah Paulson is somehow going to play Linda Tripp. All right? Now, I don't even know Linda Tripp. I don't want to say anything that might insult her. However, on Saturday Night Live, John Goodman played Linda Tripp, okay? So that should give you an idea of why I can't wait to see Sarah Paulson dressed up like Linda Tripp. I mean, this is going to be like Big Mama's House or something. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's been put on pause. Another coronavirus casualty. We got to get past this thing. Batwoman, the CW show, which I watch also. I guess it's obvious that I'm a comic book fan. I do like Batman stories. I was about to lie. I have read a Batwoman comic book, but I don't purchase them. So I wasn't a fan of Batwoman, but I wanted to see what they were going to do, and the show's pretty good. I really like this actress, Rachel Skarsten, who plays Beth Kane, or Alice, who is the villain on the show, because she's way over the top and campy, and that's the way you have to play a Batman villain. Even in the most serious iterations of Batman villains are over the top and campy if you're going to be effective. She's giving 110% in every scene, so That's why I watched Batwoman, for those of you who didn't hear. That production has been temporarily halted. They're well into their season, by the way, so I don't know what they're going to do. They may just cut it off here and, have an extra long season next season. The Bachelorette and The Bachelor. The Bachelor just ended. But they may have to wait a little longer for The Bachelorette to start up again because they suspended production because of this coronavirus thing. So the super old 38-year-old Claire Crawley may be super old 39-year-old Claire Crawley by the time they go back to production. Young Sheldon, a show that I've never watched, but it's a spinoff of The Big Bang Theory. I guess it's a prequel of Big Bang. They stopped production, along with an array of other shows that CBS shut down. I knew this segment was going to go longer than one, because it's a long list. So next I'm going to pick up and where I left off and go over the rest of this list. And we're going to start with a National Geographic series that this is going to be the third season of a series of theirs called Genius that I have some thoughts about, especially this next season. Remember, email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com or tweet me at FletchDC at FLETCHDC. I'll be right back. Don't go away.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm back. Okay. On this point in my list, I'm at a show that's called Genius Aretha. Now, National Geographic has put together this series called Genius, where the first season they did Albert Einstein. The second season it was Pablo Picasso. In this season, they're going to focus on Aretha Franklin. Cynthia Erivo is going to be playing Aretha Franklin. Cynthia Erivo is an outstanding actress. And I don't want to take anything away from her. But these are the things that I always wonder about as a Black American when I watch entertainment and television. And I'm sure she'll do a fine job. I would imagine she'll do a fine job. I'll put it that way. She's never disappointed before, at least in her performance. She's been in some productions I would prefer she weren't in. I was curious to see that once again, it seems as though American producers have found it necessary to put a British Black person in a role that is an unbelievably American role. I mean, first, now, there are two examples. Both of them were Cynthia Erivo, and it's not her fault. And maybe she's just that good. And that's maybe the answer. But she played Harriet Tubman, and now she's playing Aretha Franklin, who is an American soul icon.
Greetings.
And it's just hard for me to believe that there's not another actress singer who is an American Black person who couldn't play that role. But maybe Cynthia, maybe she's the best. I mean, let the best person win. So, but I find it more and more as we go along recently that they seem to want to employ British Black actors.
Greetings.
Are being cast in roles that American black actors are not being cast in, that are playing Americans. If they were just playing a role in which they played a person who happened to be from Britain, or they retooled it, like the Holly Gibney role in The Outsider, had Cynthia Erivo been just a British Holly Gibney, then that would have been one thing. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the list.
Greetings.
Why The Last Man is an FX post-apocalyptic drama series that's been shut down for at least 2 weeks. Wheel of Time, which is an Amazon Prime series that's being shot in Prague, that has been shut down. Law & Order SVU has temporarily shut down production. That's another one. That's like The Walking Dead. Things have to be serious for Dick Wolf to say, we're going to pause on SVU, because SVU is in perpetual motion, just like The Walking Dead. The Flash, a series that I confessed to watching earlier in this podcast, CW series, it's in its 6th season. They've shut down production due to an outbreak of coronavirus. I think one of their crew members on the set tested positive. Superman and Lois is a new CW series that they were going to shoot a pilot for, but sources say that the plan has been scrapped and the series will go into production later this year. They may want to scrap that whole plan because I have yet to see very many television series do Superman and Lois well, and I know you're going to probably go back to the Lois and Clark thing and all of that. I don't think that necessarily was the best depiction of the character Superman. However, I understand them wanting to try, because Superman is, if you can get Superman right, that's cash cow. And people will tune in to watch it. Kung Fu, another CW show. I just got on the CW for wanting to do this Superman and Lois thing. I don't understand why you have to reboot Kung Fu. If you want to have a martial arts series, fine. If you want to have a martial arts series set back whenever that was, I guess it was the 1800s or whenever that was set, fine. But why does it have to be Kwa Chang Caine? Why does it have to be Kung Fu? Why? Anyway, that has been pushed back to later, and I would not be surprised if it was pushed off the cliff. Grey's Anatomy, they're on their 16th season. They halted production because of coronavirus concerns. Game shows are affected too. The Price is Right and Card Sharks. I didn't even know Card Sharks was still on television. Production has been halted. America's Got Talent and Family Feud. Live audiences have been suspended for those two shows, as well as Wheel of Fortune, The Morning Show, the Apple TV show. I wrote down Apple Plus again. What is it with Apple Plus? Anyway, the Apple TV show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. They were going to produce, they were going for season 2. They are on a 2-week hiatus to see how things go. The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, they have suspended production. Lights Out with David Spade, they've suspended production. Not a David Spade fan. Real Time with Bill Maher. Last Friday, they had a show with just their production crew as the audience. They didn't have an audience. He announced at the end of the show that they were not going to be doing a show the following week. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Riverdale on the CW. A member of their crew recently tested positive for coronavirus. So they're on a shutdown. Grace and Frankie, shooting for the final season of that Netflix series, has been halted to ensure the safety of cast and crew. I'm sure the fact that Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda are in the high-risk category factored in there. Survivor, drumroll please, which is in its 41st season, was set to start filming later this month in Fiji, but they put that on hold for obvious reasons. The Amazing Race, which is in season 33, oh my goodness, same thing. NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS wherever, shut down. Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, all 3 Dick Wolf productions have been shut down immediately. The FBI, CBS series, shut down. The Good Fight, CBS series, shut down. The series Bull, which has already aired 16 episodes of its fourth season, decided to take a hiatus for the time being. Carnival Row, which is going to have season 2. I only watched one episode of that, but it's on Amazon Prime. Apparently it did well enough to get a second season. They were about to start filming again in Budapest, but they decided to take a halt. Jimmy Kimmel Live said that they were going to suspend production of the show beginning March 16th, and they're going to monitor the situation. They hope to return to the air March 30th. Last week tonight with John Oliver, they're going to have a shortened episode. They had a shortened episode on Sunday, and now they're going on a temporary hiatus, much like Real Time with Bill Maher. Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Late Night with Seth Meyers, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Late Late Show with James Corden. All of them have suspended shooting for now. Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, that they are going to be dark after March 16th. The Wendy Williams Show, they've been suspended indefinitely. Tamron Hall, that's been suspended indefinitely. That might be suspended permanently. Dynasty, the CW series, production suspended. Supergirl, production suspended. Lucifer has ceased production for the time being. That one might be ceased for good too. God Friended Me has ceased production. The TNT show Claws has halted production. A show my sister watches, Queen Sugar on OWN, that has just started production on season 5, but they have held up. Show All Rise on CBS has suspended production. That needs to be suspended permanently. Pennyworth season 2, which I think is a good show. It's a prequel about Alfred, the faithful butler of Bruce Wayne. That series has closed down production of season 2. And last but not least, General Hospital. ABC has announced that the soap opera would suspend production as of March 16th until Friday, April 10th. But because the show shoots, say that fast, so far ahead, ABC does not anticipate an interruption of the broadcast of original episodes. So my real red flag is going to be when General Hospital no longer has new episodes to air. That's when I'm going to really start to worry. Well, next I was going to talk about something else, but the news just keeps breaking. So, more breaking news after this.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, all right, y'all. I am back. And, coronavirus, it's just laying waste to us right now on the entertainment front. There's been more breaking news, this time coming from the Marvel Studios, which now is under the Mouse House umbrella at Disney+. Marvel Studios is pressing pause on its current production of some of their series that are going to be on Disney+. That includes The Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. And there are some shows that they have already in pre-production, and they're going to continue to do that remotely, mainly, I would imagine, mainly because a lot of that stuff is CGI, or much of it, so they don't really need the actors. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the first to delay production earlier in the week. They are filming a lot of that in Eastern Europe, so Europe is having its difficulties with the coronavirus. And so that was like a no-brainer. They needed to shut that down. Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan are going to be reprising their roles that they had on the big screen as the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The news comes after Disney suspended production of all of its live action films, but the Marvel film that includes is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which I am not familiar with. It sounds like a makeup for the Iron Fist series that they had on Netflix that was lame. Other Disney films that halted production and that are in pre-production, and I'm just mentioning this because I think they're interesting, include The Last Duel, which is a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon re-team. They are both producing, I think they wrote part of that script, or they co-wrote the script with someone else. The Little Mermaid, which I guess is the live-action Little Mermaid. Home Alone, as if that needs to be remade again. Nightmare Alley. And Peter Pan and Wendy, and a movie called Shrunk, which is another of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise. All of those films can halt production for good. Loki, which stars Tom Hiddleston, reprising his role from the MCU, will shut down as well. Now, that's supposed to, the backstory of that is supposed to be Loki popping up at different times in human history and influencing major events. So that might be kind of interesting. The last time we saw Loki, he was absconding with one of the Infinity Stones in Avengers Endgame. That series is also going to star Owen Wilson. I have no idea what Owen Wilson is going to play in the MCU. He could be the Silver Surfer if the Silver Surfer smoked bud. And Sophie DiMartino, who are among the cast members. It's slated for early 2021. Kate Herron, who's done a lot of direction for Netflix projects, she's going to direct the Loki series. The screenwriter for the Captain Marvel film is writing, producing, and showrunning WandaVision. For those of us who read Marvel Comics, I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, Captain Marvel was a well-made movie. I put that more on the director than the guy who wrote the screenplay. What bothers me about how Captain Marvel, the character, was handled is that it wasn't very true to the character at all in the comic books, and I fear they may do the same thing with the Scarlet Witch and Vision, which WandaVision is about. It's about Wanda Maximoff, known as the Scarlet Witch. She's going to be played again by Elizabeth Olsen, who has been playing it on the big screen for the MCU. And Vision, played by Paul Bettany, who was a fantastic British actor. And that series is supposed to be set in the 50s. Now, I don't know, 1950s that is. I don't know how they're going to pull that off, given that we've had Vision and Scarlet Witch in modern times. But, you know, it's the MCU. Maybe they'll definitely time travel somehow. I don't know why they'd want to go back to the 1950s. I know I wouldn't. Star Wars, which comes under the Disney Plus umbrella as well, they're doing the reverse that Marvel's having to do and shutting all these things down because of coronavirus. What they're doing is The Rise of Skywalker, which was supposed to become available for purchase on March 17th, my birthday, which is today, the day this podcast comes out. They have already released it. They released that on Friday, which was March 13th. They see millions of people staying at home because of social distancing, so they thought it was a good time to release it. The Rise of Skywalker is available in HD on most cable providers for $19.99, and it's available in 4K Ultra HD for $24.99. It's also available on Apple TV and iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, and Fandango Now. Separately, on Friday, Disney unexpectedly announced that Frozen 2 would also be on Disney Plus. That is being released today, Sunday 15th. The 15th, that's when I am recording this podcast for you. The Mouse House said it was surprising families. This is a quote now. In their press release, quote, surprising families with some fun and joy during this challenging period. And that's a reference to COVID-19. Now, to me, the big surprise would have been if they were releasing it and it was free. But to me, it looks like they're capitalizing on a business opportunity. Now, granted, if you have Disney Plus, you're not going to have to pay extra. But I think it's a safe bet that some people who have children at home who want to watch Frozen 2 and do not have Disney Plus might just make that purchase. So while that's a good business plan, and I would do that. I'd make the same decision. Bravo. But surprising families with some fun and joy is a little bit much.
What a sucker.
In January, Frozen, the movie, crested the $1 billion mark worldwide. Again, bravo, Disney. I am all for good entertainment, getting a great reception at the box office. People want to pay for quality. As long as Disney delivers quality, they deserve all the money they make. But they should probably give us Frozen free. Now, that Star Wars stuff for streaming, I just told you about, but you still can get those movies in DVD and Blu-ray form. Currently, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is scheduled to be released on physical DVD and in 4K Ultra HD on Blu-ray on March 31st, when it's also slated to become available to rent. On March 31st, also for the first time, the first 8 Star Wars films, which they're calling the Skywalker Saga, are going to be released on Blu-ray, 4K, Ultra HD. And for you Jedi heads, you know those 8 films include The Phantom Menace, unfortunate film. Attack of the Clones, really unfortunate film. Revenge of the Sith, which I thought was really interesting about the how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. A New Hope, which was actually the first Star Wars film. The Empire Strikes Back, the best Star Wars film. Return of the Jedi, nah. The Force Awakens, it was good. Rogue One, very good. And those films are going to be released on March 31st in DVD form. So for this podcast, that's all the breaking COVID-19 news I will give you about how the entertainment world is being affected. For the rest of this podcast, for the next 2 segments, we are going to be talking about Westworld. Tonight, the first episode of Season 3 will be premiering. I will be watching, and I will give you a little recap. I'm going to try to it's not going to be spoiler-free. However, I'm not going to be giving you a blow-by-blow. We're going to be talking about the themes that were going to be reviewed in the series. I'll give you my impressions of the series, my impressions of the actors, of the new characters, and I want to hear from you. Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com or tweet me at FletchDC, FletchDC, and let me know your impressions of Westworld. And if you want to write about a character or write about some of your impressions, I will read them on the air. Okay, so that's it. I will be back with Westworld. Don't go away.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Okay, all right. Westworld, Season 3, Episode 1. Let's do this. Now, I'm going to warn you first that it's going to be assumed that if you're listening to this Westworld segment or any of my segments hereafter about Westworld, that you have watched the first 2 seasons and that you've watched the episode in question, which in this case is Episode 1, and all of the episodes previous to that in Season 3. So if you have not watched any of those and you don't want to be spoiled, or have a spoiler or have me spoil it, which I will, turn me off now, go back and watch it, and then please do come back, because I would love to tell you my take. And I'd like to hear from you. Let me also start off by saying that, and I'll say this quite a few times, please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and let me know what you thought about this episode or any episodes in the future. Give me your take, give me your predictions, anything you want to say, or give me your impressions of what I have to say. And I don't care how uncomplimentary it is. I will read them on the air, and I enjoy reading criticism on the air. So, I was going to do a quick reset when I first thought about doing this of the first 2 seasons, but I don't think that's necessary after watching this first episode, because I'm not going to use the catchphrase soft reboot that I keep hearing bandied about. But I will say that we're in a whole new world in the minutia of the plot. Well, really, you know what? You could probably watch season 1 and come to season 3 and probably do all right. You know, if you haven't been watching Westworld at all, I'm not going to say you can just jump into season 3, because there's certain things that you need to know. This plot picks up right after the events at the end of season 2, where there's been a revolt in the park. And the hosts kind of went off, and Dolores escaped in the body of Charlotte Hale, and she had 5 control units in her purse. So that's the only thing I'm going to rehash. You know, as the season goes along, I'll probably have to go back and talk about some things, but that's where we are. We're actually about 92 or 3 days after the events of the park. This season, Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy said that they are going to try to keep pretty much to a straight-up timeline. I mean, there are some memories. You know, a character named Caleb, which I'll get into a little later, does have some memory flashbacks, and, you know, that's just a normal device in a narrative. However, they're not going to fool around and play with timelines like a puzzle like they did in the first 2 seasons, which I'm a little disappointed about. I loved that in Westworld. Of course, I'm a big fan of Memento 2, which is the Jonathan Nolan movie. But apparently they lost a lot of audience last season, so they've decided not to do that. So this episode starts off in Beihai, China. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. With an investor of the park who gets the news about the massacre in Westworld. And he's asking, I guess, his right-hand man to divest of this, out of this, because I guess it's going to be a total catastrophe, because Delos stock is going to crash. Nobody wants a part of this murder machine. He seems to have a very fiery temper. Anyway, to make a long story short, Dolores visits him after he goes to sleep. Apparently, he visited the park, big stockholder. I think all of the stockholders did. He was, he was one of her rapists. You know, unfortunately, I think I told you in our last episode, Dolores, one of the reasons why she's hell-bent on getting the humans is that while she was a host, she wasn't treated well at all. She probably got the worst of, well, other than Teddy, she was probably treated the worst. And she was treated worse than Teddy, because Teddy just got killed. A lot of times Dolores was degraded and worse. So she definitely hates humans. Make a long story short, I wanted to just tell the one thing we need to know about this opening scene, this cold open, is that Dolores visits this guy, Jerry, big stockholder, mega rich guy. And she coerces him into giving her a great deal of his wealth by torturing him with his memories that she has access to or had access to, and of all the evil things he did. And she now has become very wealthy and has the means to do things out here in the outside world. They had to set that up, and they did a really good job of doing that. So I'm going to skip over to Los Angeles. That's where this thing opens after the scene in China where Dolores gets her money. And we're introduced to Caleb. Caleb is played by Aaron Paul. He's an ex-military guy. Now, he also talks about being in prison, and I'm getting the feeling that military service is part of the penal system now, or could be part of the penal system. Anyway, he's talking to somebody named Francis over his phone, who calls him up. Apparently, this guy seems to be a counselor, also a friend of Caleb. They serve together from the conversations they've had. Caleb works at a construction site with a chappy-looking robot. And during the course of this interaction and this exposition, we see that people have implants that they put on in their mouths. I think they stick them in their palate, and they either get high off of these things. His mother, who is in the hospital, seems to be suffering from some sort of mental illness, has one of these things that she puts in her mouth. I'm sure they have medicinal purposes as well. It looks like a good portion of his income goes to supporting his mother in the hospital, so that's a lot of money. So he does these side jobs on this app called Rico, which he does petty crime. He doesn't want to do what they call personals, which I think are probably higher crimes like murders and kidnappings, etc. He just does petty small-time crime. Then we go to San Francisco. We see Charlotte Hale, or somebody who's in Charlotte Hale's body. We don't know yet. I'll give you my feeling on that. She apparently is the head of Delos, or acting chair of Delos, because of the absence of William, I believe, is the absentee person, who is Ed Harris. There's a proxy vote that is made through some AI for that missing chairperson. But Charlotte Hale makes the decision to move forward with Delos after this massacre in the park, rather than liquidate the park, which some of the other board members want to do. She wants to go forward with it because she said now people will want to go to the park even more, because it's even more daring to go, since you really literally are going to be taking your life in your hands. We see Bernard, who his last name is Bernard Lowe. I didn't know that. He happens to be hiding out at a meat farm processing plant that makes engineered meat that is in the Philippines. We come to find out from a sign in the background. And he's going under the name Armand Delgado. Charlotte Hale has set him up as the patsy for what happened at the Delos Park. So now he's a fugitive from the law, hiding out. They are looking for him because they are saying it's all his fault why all these people got killed. Exactly 103 people got killed. Next, we go to London, where we see that Dolores is going by the name Laura Espin. She's getting close to a man named Liam Dempsey. He's the guy who runs a big company called Insight, which seems to be the premier tech company in the world right now. Dolores apparently met him in Burma. It appears that they didn't move far from the South China Sea, where the Delos Park is supposed to be located, because with Bernard hiding out in the Philippines and Dolores now meeting this guy in Burma. Liam's head of security, whose name I did not catch, is played by an actor called Tommy Flanagan, who played Chibs in Sons of Anarchy. That was my favorite character in that series. I was glad to see that actor because I don't see him too often. And he is very suspect of Dolores and her intentions. Liam has to go back to LA, where he invites Dolores to accompany him back to their headquarters of Insight, where they see Rehoboam, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's the same as the name of the first king of Judah. That's King David's grandson, son of Solomon. It's the backbone of this company, Insight. It's the premier artificial intelligence in the world. It has all the information that they have collected from all the human beings on the face of the earth. And I think we're going to find that what it does is it sets up strategies for how people are supposed to conduct the totality of their lives, from who they end up living with to what jobs they have. Anyway, what we learned from this meeting that Liam has is that he doesn't really run Insight at all. It's somebody else above him who has not been named. There is a concern that Rehoboam has been hacked, and they want to get to the bottom of that. Meanwhile, Chibs is investigating Dolores, and when I come back, I'll talk about the end of the episode, and then I'll go over some categories I'm going to go over after every episode. New characters, new places, new tech, my little nitpicks, and my predictions for the future. Don't go away.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Okay, welcome back. Let me get to the end of this episode and then we can talk about it. Rehoboam is this AI that Insight has that Dolores seems to be very curious about. She tries to get some information out of Liam by, he has gotten very close to her now. I think he, outkicked his coverage, so to speak, when he picked her up. And he likes pleasing Dolores. And Dolores is asking him what's going on. He tells her that he doesn't really run the company. There's somebody else who runs it, who used to be partners with his father. Somebody else designed it with his father that they call the architect. He hasn't been named. And that no one really knows what the system is doing. Like the system is kind of like on autopilot because it's so smart. As Dolores tries to get more information from him, she gets tased by Chibs, who the security guy, who tells Liam that he's checked her out and she's not who she says she is and that he's going to go get rid of her. And she's obviously some sort of corporate spy or worse. So they take her out to a car, to a spot where he intercepted a text that she made the night before, this underpass where, oh, by the way, where Caleb has to show up to deliver some drugs. And so we go down to the underpass. Chibs is sitting there waiting to see whoever it was that Dolores was trying to meet. Never shows up, so he says, go ahead and kill her. So they use these drugs that they got from the delivery to inject in her. They don't take effect because, of course, she's a host. She's a robot. Doesn't work. Make a long story short, Dolores does her thing, kills everybody, ends up killing Chibs. It turns out that the person she was texting the night before is a copy of Chibs. We don't know who's in that body. But from now on, the security guy is going to be a host that is in league with Dolores. So fake Chibs goes back to corporate land. Dolores gets in a gunfight. She's wounded in a gunfight. And the way that the episode ends is with Dolores falling into Caleb's arms because of loss of blood, much like Dolores fell into the arms of William back when he first came to the park. What I want to devote the rest of the podcast to, and I'm going to do this differently next time. I took way too much time explaining that plot. Thanks for bearing with me. First, I just want to talk about new characters. The newest character, biggest character that we have is Caleb. That's played by Aaron Paul, the guy who played Jesse Pinkman back in Breaking Bad. And I know most actors don't like to be typecast, but I think in this case, they couldn't go with anyone other than Aaron Paul because I believe, much like Jesse Pinkman was teaching Walter White the ins and outs of being a criminal because he was a chemistry teacher. He didn't know anything about that. I think that this character, Caleb, is going to teach Dolores the ins and outs of the underworld in this world and how she can function. And so I think he's going to be the same guy. He's going to be the everyman who has some street sense, has a little street cred, and he's going to pass that on to Dolores. The other characters we have are Liam, who apparently seems to just be a rich kid who inherited this company. He is now very, wary of Dolores, but Dolores has his right-hand man now, so she has an inside guy. The inside guy being Chibs, the security guy, and I'll get his name next time, and that's another new character. And the last new character I'm going to talk about is a guy who Chibs named when he was dying Serac, not the vodka. This guy's name is Serac, S-E-R-A-C, according to the subtitles. This is the guy who's really running things, and that's who Dolores needs to get to because he's going to be able to answer her questions and give her access to whatever she needs to wreak whatever havoc she wants to on the humans. We went to a lot of places in this episode, unlike the other 2 seasons when we spent most of the time just in Westworld. This episode we were in China, Los Angeles. The Delos offices appear to be in San Francisco, since you can see the Bay Bridge in the background, Silicon Valley, and the Philippines, where Bernard is. That was kind of interesting. And I don't know if we're going to be globe-trotting through this whole thing, but that will be interesting. There was a lot of new tech that I thought was quite interesting that we didn't get to see in the first 2 seasons. In the boardroom, there was a mute button that Charlotte Hale could push, and whoever was sitting at that table, you couldn't hear what they were saying anymore. I thought that was kind of funny. There were hovercrafts that seemed to act like helicopters. They were kind of neat. Caleb was using what was virtual counseling from a simulated voice of his dead friend Francis, which is a little morbid, but because the doctor said that he had so many, I think this is the doctor of the VA hospital, said he had so many patients, they found a way that people could have this virtual counseling, and they used people through their observations and their scanning they get along with. In this case, it was his friend Francis. That was kind of creepy. Dolores has a scene when she's in London, when she drives up in this little black dress, that she pulls a little ripcord and it instantly converts into an evening gown. That was kind of cool. And Dolores seems to be plugged into some type of virtual assistant that found her a motorcycle and rented her an apartment. And, I don't know what this is. Maybe she is hooked in to Rehoboam. They haven't said that for sure, but she's communicating with something that is tied into what appears to be everything that she needs. So maybe it is. Have a few little nitpicks on this episode. I didn't understand in the beginning when Jerry was zip tied in his hands and she put these glasses on him, which were pretty much Google glasses, where he would see this virtual reality of his memories. He didn't ever even try to take them off. He kept saying, make it stop, but he just walked around, ran around, and he never reached up. If he could not get them off, they needed to show him reaching up and not being able to take them off. But he never did. That was kind of lame, because he just was lame. There don't seem to be any security cameras in these places where Dolores goes. I mean, I know that she has the ability, I think, to tie into these this technology, this mechanical technology, and operate it. I mean, that's what happened in the first scene when she was in a smart house. She seemed to be able to control everything. And maybe she's on it so much that she just disables all of the security cameras that are around. But she is not hard to pick out of a crowd. I mean, not only is she, strikingly tall, but Dolores seems to like to wear very short dresses with very long legs and very high heels. And so it's not like nobody can see her. And I think that she would be very conspicuous on a security camera. And anyway, they just don't seem to be able to track her. Now, something else that I noticed was that when Charlotte Hale got off of one of these, in her first scene, or in her entrance, she comes out and she just lights up a cig. She fires up a butt immediately. And I thought, wow, I know that with the problems we've had with vaping, maybe they don't vape anymore. I just thought it was very striking that they still are smoking tobacco at this time. But there are seems to be gas-driven cars, internal combustion engines. So as the more things change, I guess the more things stay the same. In these last few seconds, I want to give you a few predictions, and I'd like to hear yours. So again, please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and let me know your predictions. We don't know who is in Charlotte Hale yet. My guess, it could be Arnold. Now, I know Angela some people are guessing Angela, and that's a good guess, but I think it might be Arnold that's in there. Liam says that no one knows what's going on with the system except for the original architect, but they never name the original architect. And the reason they don't name it is because it's going to be the mystery of the season. I believe that the original architect is either Arnold or Robert Ford. I have a feeling that it might be Robert Ford. Dolores calls herself the last of her kind in the first scene when she's talking to Jerry and trying to get his money. So, and this isn't a prediction, it's just the thought, is that I guess the other hosts are still running on loops, or they are just under her control, because apparently she seems to believe that she's the only sentient host. We know that Maeve was sentient last season, but since she didn't get out of the park, I think Dolores believes that she is the only one of her kind. So that is it. I'd like to thank you once again for listening. This has been the GSMC Television Podcast, part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Howard Fletcher. I'd like you to please remember to subscribe to the show, write us a nice review, mention me if you want to. I'd like that. And it really helps us. It really helps us along. Just stop right now and go ahead and rate the show on iTunes. That'll help us. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I want to thank you again for listening. Have a good night. Next show will be up next Friday. We'll talk about Westworld again and whatever else is coronavirus has shut down. And you all stay safe. You all stay clean. See you next time. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.